The AniLogics Power of Science is protecting Mark Drury's deer herd.
Man, what a bummer.
Not what you want to find. But I had Mark freeze in and read lighting with AniLogics, and now it's time to turn a negative into a positive and talk to the smart guys a little bit.
What are some of the steps that you take throughout the year to help protect your herd? Well, I'm Matt Drury, and in this edition of DoD TV, we're diving into the science. This segment of DoD TV is brought to you by AniLogics. Protect your herd with the power of science. If you follow Drury Outdoors on Facebook, well then you might have seen Mark Drury, the mad scientist himself, go live in not exactly the most desirable circumstances. Had a dead buck, and he had the guys from AniLogics to let us know why. Finding dead deer on your property is always hard, especially if it's one of your target animals. But finding solutions to why that may have happened can be the next best solution for any outdoorsman. Enter AniLogics, a group of scientists that specialize in whitetails herd health. Now we have the mad scientist in Mark Drury, and we got veterinarians and the guys from AniLogics. Let's see what these guys came up with. And let's protect your herd with the power of science.
Not what you want to find during the early part of February.
Man, what a bummer.
Another one found.
Yeah, we're actually live here today in Iowa, and I've got my good friends from AniLogics with me, Mark Freeze and Reed Lighting, and they came down just to simply talk about herd health. And I saw this guy from up on the ridge yesterday, and I thought, well, why don't we come down there and look at him? And it's part of the overall circle of life, right? You always want to try and harvest them, and as good stewards of the land, you want to grow them and do what you can for them from a herd health standpoint, but you can't keep every single deer alive. Where did this buck come from? What was his ultimate demise? Well, you look at the hooves, there's no sign at all that it was hoof rot. Could it have been predation? Could it have been EHD? My gut tells me, based on the age of the deer, chances are, meaning how long he'd been laying there, estimated, I'm guessing it could have been EHD. We weren't far from a road. It could have been a vehicle collision. You just never know. But I had Mark freeze in and read lighting with AniLogics, and now it's time to turn a negative into a positive and talk to the smart guys a little bit. These guys know a great deal about herd health, and that's what I want ultimately, is the healthiest possible herd I can have. Back in the summer of 12, we had an incredible EHD outbreak, and that's what really led me to get to know Mark and Reed and all the folks up at AniLogics. And after 6 hours listening to these guys, Terry and I had to pick our jaws up off the table, because clearly they were a step ahead of anything I had heard about before from a health perspective as it pertains to nutrition. Tell me a little bit about why you started AniLogics. I mean, you guys had an EHD outbreak as well, did you not?
Well, one of our partners, Dr. Brian Dorsey, had an outbreak down in Nebraska. And a bunch of his buddies were talking about EHD and what do we do about it. Well, ironically, at the same time, we were starting a feed company, which was AniLogics. And we brought everything that we knew from our laboratories, if you will, because we, at that time, had an injectable EHD vaccine. We brought it through some compounds into the deer herd through feed. Now, this is Dr. Reed Lighting, our nutritionist. Now, Brian Dorsey introduces him well. He always says, not much fun at a party, but really smart. So, Reed,
smart guy.
give us your little
Sure.
sense.
Yeah, we kind of got started because we know that just the normal habitat doesn't provide good nutrition or all the nutrition that a deer needs, and that with working with other species like cattle and small ruminants like sheep, we know that to get to genetic potential and the immune system especially, we need to provide all the minerals and nutrients needed. And that's kind of how we got started.
And our interest from a hunting standpoint was to limit how much damage we had from a disease like EHD. I mean, we just wanted a healthier herd. So it made sense to start working with these guys, because these guys, he mentioned their labs, well, they're in the veterinarian side of things. They took all the knowledge they had there and then applied it to the deer herd, because these guys are deer hunters and they were interested in it.
So while I've got these guys here, I'm gonna drill down just a little bit. I'm gonna ask them all the questions I can think of. It was nice of them to come down, tour the farm a little bit, because I'm trying to always do the best that I can to be a good steward of the land, but I'm gonna get greedy here. I'm gonna find out all I can from the smart guys.
This is your standard stuff that you guys use, and I use it all the time to take pictures with. Deer are social animals, but I like to keep them as far apart as possible. So if I'm gonna put some out, like I don't pile it, I have a tendency to scatter it. And then if I put a lot out, I'm gonna scatter it even further, so that you're not putting every animal in the exact same spot. And I think sometimes guys have a tendency to get them all to one spot, but I don't know that that's necessarily good from a social stress standpoint. I do the bulk of my feeding in the winter. My food plots, they're all over them all through the spring, summer, and fall, but come winter, that's when they really need that nutrition, you know? So number one, the palatability is through the roof. Like, I've never seen anything that attracts deer like Supplement 365 or any of the AniLogics products for that matter. So Reed, what differentiates this from all the other lines out there?
Sure. Normal inorganic minerals are poorly absorbed, so just because you get them in the deer doesn't mean that they don't fall out the back of the deer. So chelated minerals are bound to a protein, and they're absorbed at probably 4 or 5 times the rate that inorganic minerals are.
So that's why you go with the chelated. Okay, probiotics. Why probiotics?
Yep, we know that probiotics improve the nutrition in the rumen, the digestion of actual things that they eat. So it's one thing to take it in, but it's another thing to be able to actually utilize it. We use probiotics that are shown to work in small ruminants.
So how does all that, coupled with the vitamins and everything else you have in there, end up helping your herd fight EHD? I mean, it's not like it can stop it, but it does help the secondary stuff they get from EHD, correct?
So EHD is a virus, and there's nothing that's anti-viral by properties within our product. But if we can improve the immune system, we can improve the ability to fight off the secondary bugs that oftentimes cause the death.
So that kind of explains why when you get an EHD outbreak, some of them die, it seems like, within a few days, but then others, we see them die in October, November, and they have all the classic signs of EHD. Yep. With this, you can at least help them ward off those things that might kill them 3 or 4 months later.
We know that probably 70% of the ability to ward off a disease is related to pre-health nutrition.
So one of the most intriguing things that I learned from these guys is how to analyze your herd and study your herd, and we've actually collected liver samples from the deer and then packaged them up and sent them to these guys. And what did you learn from some of the livers that you've received from around the country?
The reason we use livers is they're kind of the report card of nutrition, especially when it comes to minerals. So what we found is that we just don't find deer that are deficient in macro minerals like calcium and phosphorus. But what we did find was that the micro minerals were almost devoid in a lot of them through multiple geographic regions, even heavy soil areas, light soil areas, just low in copper and manganese and zinc and selenium, the ones that are important for so many body functions.
Your protein level is lower than I've seen in a lot of different products out there. Why is it lower?
Because palatability is so good and intake is so good, you can actually run a little bit lower protein level. We forget that deer don't need a certain protein diet, they need so many grams per day. And you have to couple what's in the diet with how much they eat to get that. So if they eat more, they need less.
And then as far as, like, I know it's a corn base, obviously. I see sunflower seeds, I see
alfalfa.
Alfalfa, are there soybeans in it?
So roasted beans.
Roasted beans. And then you add the palatability factor, all the chelated minerals, all the probiotics, all the vitamins in that same mix then.
That's correct.
What about a guy that says, you know what, it's too much to spend. I'm not gonna go out and do it. I'm gonna continue to feed corn. That's all I'm gonna put out there.
Well, corn's better than nothing. It does supply about 8% protein and it's got a lot of energy. It just doesn't supply enough protein and it doesn't supply enough of the vitamins and minerals to make that liver back to where it should be.
We had to fix the problem of I feed corn, but I want to do it good. And that's where we came up with our Jack product, just add corn. You know, if you've got a farm or whatever and you can buy corn for $3 a bushel, that is a great way of doing that. The hunter is really evolving, and we're seeing it across the nation. They're starting to use the trail cams like you got behind you.
More than anything, I put it out strictly because of palatability, and I'm gonna take an inventory to see who's still left. I've noticed the high usage for minerals is July, August. They start to get off of them in September when the velvet sheds. And then I see it again starting in right after the rut and they're about to shed their antlers. When they shed those antlers, they just destroy it from then up through spring green.
Even though they're shedding and people think these deer are going into kind of a doldrum, they're not. What's happening?
Sure, well, they've just come through a pretty heavy season for them. So coming through that time of year where they're active and probably don't eat like they should through that time period. And then once the antlers are coming off, then the whole metabolism system changes again and they have that need for minerals.
Man, what a great day. I really appreciate Mark and Reed coming down and spending some time with me there on the Iowa farm. I hated to find that deer, but man, did I gain some information.
So if a guy doesn't want to feed and he says it's a pain in the rear, I don't have the time, you've got a protein block that kind of provides all that, and that lasts quite a bit longer, doesn't it?
So the protein block is essentially Supplement 365 in a block form.
One big pellet.
One big pellet. And the advantage to that is you get guys that don't want to walk into their draws. So they can go in, drop a block, drop their camera, and leave for a month and a half, 2 months.
Seasonally, there's times where we need protein and there's times that we need energy. So during a time of year, like in the fall, maybe we've got some hard forages for them to feed on, but protein's hard to come by. So seasonally, that would be a time that we'd want to feed that type of a product.
And how long is it going to last me?
You know, we're seeing about a month and a half, 2 months. But if you got these spots where you don't want to be going into real consistently and you just want to walk in, drop a block, get out of there and have something that gives them some protein source for a month and a half, 2 months, this is
there
perfect.
It is. Perfect. And a great place to take pictures. Mineral dirt. Why does a hunter need it? Why would he want to put it out?
Well, we know that deer are deficient in especially microminerals as well as the normal part of as the immune system of the deer. So it's a timing thing. We certainly want to have it during the summertime, grass green up, that type of thing. And then late fall also, as antlers come off, they hit it pretty hard.
Explain how you would actually develop a mineral site, if you will.
That's probably the biggest question. We use 1, maybe 2 mineral sites per 80 acres. Get to the dirt, loosen up the dirt, put that down. And if you really want to start it well, we call it the jump start, throw some 365 supplement on top.
Where they find it?
Just to get them coming in. Then they'll go through the 65 right on down in.
This is something Grant Woods told me years ago about mineral sites. He always likes to do them on a little bit of a slope, because if it's flat, all they do is dig it out and you end up with water. You end up with a bunch of, a lot of stuff you really don't want there from a bacterial standpoint and whatnot. He always puts them on a slope to let that, leach on out through your soil, and then mineral lick will just go and go and go.
We have seen 3 to 4 foot deep circles where the deer just go in and they just keep eating and eating.
And that's not optimum from a health standpoint, I wouldn't think.
No. This is our mineral block, the Annie block, 20 pounds.
We'll let Mark hold it.
It's handleable.
Interesting about the weight. The funny thing is when we first developed it, it was bigger. The guy said, have you tried carrying that out? Can't you make it smaller? We can, and we did.
And what I've noticed when I've put these out, especially in Missouri, that the most use that I see on them is June, July, August. It generally stops or slows down in September, and then bam, they're right back on them in January through April like crazy.
A little trait about this, there's certain minerals in here that it would take 600 trophy rocks to equal the mineral level that we have in one block.
They run about 30% salt, enough to get good intake, but not take up so much space that you can't get minerals.
Much less than say a rock or whatnot. And really, from a picture standpoint, I get as many pictures over this as anything. This and a scrape are my two go-to things to get pictures of big deer.
So one thing's for sure, when you go out there and you decide to get trail camera pictures or you decide to put some foreign product on the ground, you want to make sure you know what's in it. Are you doing more harm than good? In this case, that's why we choose AniLogics. Without question, the finest feed and supplements and minerals on the market.
There really is no off-season for multiple reasons. One, you're starting feeding now. When your food plots are going down, you got a lot of brown grass, not a lot of nutritional value in that, and the deer don't have what they need.
The same issues that apply to bucks apply to does also. We know that their livers are deficient and we have to improve the immune system. We also know that reproduction is tied to the microminerals and the protein levels they have, so certainly improving reproduction in does.
Back at home in Minnesota when we started testing this, is we noticed a lot of does that would have single fawns. And when we started using this consistently, we started having twins and triplets.
Just from an overall health perspective.
The health of the doe.
You guys offer a program, and I meant to mention this earlier. Call the folks up at AniLogics, get a kit or a packet from them to where you could package that liver, send it to them, they'll test it, and then send you the results of exactly how healthy or unhealthy your deer herd is.
Yeah, we're continuing to build that database across the country with, it only takes a fist-sized sample frozen. We'll send shippers and they can send them right back.
I really appreciate your time today, just talking to us about herd health. I'm gonna go put a bunch more of this out. I'd like to show you some more of the farm if you'll go with me.
Yeah,
Great.
All right, thanks guys.
Excellent information, gentlemen, and I know personally I can't wait to get a little bit more of that jack out on the lease ASAP. Remember, caring for your herd health is something that we can all do as outdoorsmen to better protect that resource for years to come. Let us know in the comments below what the health of your deer herd's doing right now, and as always, thanks for watching another edition of DoD TV. This segment of DoD TV is brought to you by AniLogics. Protect your herd with the power of science.